Then you're rooting for
to
Texas,
be that 4 seed in the playoff.
Texas, not Texas anymore, right? Who's TCU's
Texas,
Texas and Baylor.
Yep.
And Notre Dame against Clemson.
And whoever they play in a Big
But
12
look,
championship.
I'm not putting it past Tennessee to beat Georgia.
No,
of course.
No, not at all.
And in fact,
they may not be a one-loss team. They may be shoo-ins.
Here's the thing with Georgia, too. A lot of praise for Georgia, and rightfully so. They're the defending champs. They're the champs until someone beats them. They sleptwalk in Columbia, Missouri, and should have lost to a Missouri team that should have lost to Vandy this weekend at home. Not very good.
Missouri played their greatest game at the right time.
They are a bigger favorite in the cocktail party against Florida than they've ever been in the series. 22.5-point favorite. But that's always a wild game. They've got Florida. They host Tennessee. Then they go to Mississippi State and to Kentucky in consecutive weeks. Not easy. The schedule for Georgia is not – now they get Georgia Tech at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. That's going to be an easy win. But they've got a clip now of 4 games. Florida, Tennessee, Florida neutral field, Tennessee at home, in Starkville against Mississippi State, weird place to play, and then at Kentucky. Who's to say Georgia doesn't have 2 losses in those 4 games?
Well, and a one-loss Georgia, I think, gets in the playoff, too. They can make the same statement here.
Well, and again, if the one loss isn't Tennessee, then they're going to have the head-to-head and go to Atlanta and have a chance to win the SEC title.
I feel like that's where Tennessee's loss comes, if it comes, is in Atlanta.
Against Bama
in a
rematch.
And then again, you split with Bama.
I would also say
I think you could beat them again.
Tennessee beating Georgia, one-loss Georgia on the outside looking in after the SEC championship in Atlanta. A one-loss Georgia has the same type of resume, like within the schedule itself.
See, and then you get into the conversation like, shouldn't they be punished a little bit for not having made it to their championship game?
Yeah,
for the college football championship.
Not if you're not going to punish Tennessee for the same thing. I mean, to me, that the head-to-head matchup in Athens, if it's 1 versus 2, I think either team has a great shot with a loss to still make it.
Absolutely. And what's helping Georgia right now, too, is Oregon's been great since they got blown out by awesome. Georgia. So that helps Georgia's case that they won, I think, 49-10 was the final on a neutral field. And it didn't even feel that close watching that game.
It was
total destruction.
They whipped them.
But if Georgia loses to Tennessee and Tennessee loses to Bama in the conference championship game, Tennessee's in over Georgia.
Tennessee's in.
Right.
If Tennessee is undefeated playing in the
they're going to be number 1 in the
championship game, they are the same team as Georgia a year ago where you're playing for fun. You want to beat Alabama and win the SEC.
Get a better seed.
But you're going to be in the college football
they would go into
playoff.
that number 1.
Right. Just like Georgia.
Hit us up at OutKick 360 with your thoughts coming up. We'll give some thoughts on the World Series. We'll let you know about the latest on Game 1, start time, and more on OutKick 360.
Good. Continuing with our interviews, I guess you call them, conversations, however you want to phrase it. I'm here with some Colts fans. This is a good group here. Where are you guys from?
We actually came all the way from Pennsylvania. Bangor, to be exact.
Okay, so Pennsylvania, but you're Colts fans. Please explain.
Well, our one buddy was a diehard Colts fan, and he threw the best parties in the world, and we followed him all the way through, and we went to all the parties, and eventually you got to become a Colts fan.
Is your other buddy a Seattle Mariners fan, and you're just magically a Mariners fan also? Are we Phillies right now? Okay, good. She's got the Phillies there. So Phillies, Colts, what other weird combinations of teams do you guys root for?
That's kind of it.
And the Eagles. And Yankees.
Yeah, so this could be a World Series matchup if the Yankees come back from 3-0. Yankees, Phillies, Colts. So we're here for the Titans game, right? How are we feeling?
We're feeling real confident. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Matt Ryan got on track last week. Second half of the game, he passed for over 250 yards alone. Jonathan Taylor's coming back from injury. I mean, I think it's going to be a rout.
Ma'am, are you with him? Do you claim him?
I do, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Today.
Do you think that it's going to be a blowout?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, well, the fact that Matt Ryan cannot hold on to the football doesn't concern you at all?
Well, that is a little troublesome. And there is this guy named Buck McCoy that told us yesterday the Colts are going to win on a last-second field goal. So maybe the blowout won't be in play, but definitely a Colts victory.
When I say Jacksonville Jaguars, what comes to mind for you?
Disgust. Pure disgust. Yeah. They're just not as good as people think they are, and it is what it is.
Is Frank Reich going to be the coach next year for the Colts? I can tell right away. She's the one that's got the answer.
Absolutely, he's the best. I'm a huge Frank fan.
Why exactly?
She said a few minutes ago he was very sexy for an older man.
I just love
And I allowed it. I allowed it.
You think that Matt Ryan, or no, sorry, you think Frank Reich is a silver fox? Is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely, yes.
Does he look like one of the older guys in Mad Men? Is that the vibe that he puts off?
I never thought of that, but yes, yeah.
This is what I do. I give people ideas. They're great ideas, and they run with it. Everyone here is saying Colts by $1 million today, right?
That's it.
I'm going to say it's going to be close. I'm calling 24-21 Colts.
Phi Kappa Charmer told me they're going to rout them. It's going to be over early.
I'm going 31-10 Colts.
31-21 Colts.
One other thing, this always confuses me about Indianapolis. What is the culinary tradition of Indianapolis? Nashville, they're trying to latch on to hot chicken right now. Barbecue, southern food, soul food. If I said Indianapolis food, what comes to mind first?
French fries.
Loaded tots.
Loaded tots.
This just in, everyone. Indianapolis does not have a culinary tradition because they went with French fries. That'll do it here.
Got the start time for Game 1 of the World Series on Friday, 8:03 Eastern.
Oh,
first
we
pitch.
love those weird
Pop
start
up
times.
Phillies.
8:03 Eastern.
That's better than 8:07.
And we really needed, what, 6 days in between games?
Sunday to Friday night.
Yeah. Whatever.
And we'll see if the Astros will lose a game.
I
Wouldn't that
actually
be
like the
something
Phillies.
if they go
7-0 to
4
start.
straight? Phillies are going to win some games in this series.
I think so too. I think they might win the series.
I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that an NL East team will beat the Astros for a second straight year in the World Series. Phillies are the team of destiny.
What was the score of the series last year?
With
4-2.
Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper
4-1.
going deep.
Yeah, Braves in 5
Braves
last
in
year.
5?
Yeah. They were up 3-0, and then they lost at home in Game 4 and then won Game 5 in Houston.
So how about
4-1.
just the coincidence of the NFL schedule with this? Have you seen what's happening next week?
Phillies, the Eagles play Thursday night. Is it at home?
No, it's in Houston.
Oh.
Yeah,
Phillies, Texans. I mean, come on, I keep saying Phillies. So, Chad, Thursday night football.
It's in between games 5 and 6 of the World Series. They will have Philadelphia against Houston in the NFL in Houston.
That is
A
just
scheduling quirk.
pure gold for both, really. I mean, it melds up really nicely. That's cool. It's too bad the Texans are, that's the best team in football, but against the worst team in football. It'd be cool if it was more competitive. But it's very cool that in the middle, on the day off, you keep the rivalry going.
Do we have the long-term forecast for Philly? Of course, you got the retractable roof in Houston. I'm going to look that up just briefly just to see what
I'm
it
going
looks
to try
like.
to storm that game 2. I'm in Houston. And I'm
So the
staying downtown.
cheapest ticket right now is what can you
They
find?
have standing room only tickets, and it's $570, $590. That's out of my range.
By the way, Braves won 4 games to 2. I don't know why I'm blanking on. I must have just completely erased that
Erased the loss.
other Astros win from my memory. So they won game 2 of the
6.
series that I erased from my memory.
I think I'm staying near the game also. So
Maybe a little rain in Philly, but nothing crazy. No, it's not going to be really cold or anything. So
I'm trying to get fired up.
what
I'm
as
depressed still.
Baseball fan, but not a fan of either team. How much do you think the average baseball fan in the city would be willing to pay? Like, do you think there are a ton of people that would be willing to pay nearly $600 just to get in and watch a World Series game?
I would think so. I mean, don't you think the number is kind of that number?
Yeah, and that's the worst seat in the house, right?
Yeah.
How many Astros? I mean, Astros, this is their 3rd or 4th straight World Series.
They've been 4 and 6 years.
4
I
and
wanna
6
say.
years. I think it loses its luster.
Yeah.
I think the amount
You've
you're
been,
willing to
like
pay.
the
if
people
you're
who
a
have to be at one game in their lifetime
Houstonian-
have been.
And you also don't have the fan base of the other team that's in the city, right? Like the Phillies are just going to have
Well, they've
their
got
big
their
party
3
at
games,
home.
but it's been a long time. I mean, there will be some Phillies fans there, I would imagine.
One of the Astros fans is about to join us. He threw out a first pitch this year. John
He did.
McClain.
He
John McClain.
sparked this whole thing.
Astros legend,
That's
John
right.
McClain.
NFL headlines, and there are plenty to dive into as we head into Week 8. John McClain joins us next across the OutKick Network. This is OutKick 360.
Chad Withrow with OutKick 360. This is 3 and 60, where I answer 3 questions in 60 seconds.
Thoughts on Tennessee's GoFundMe for new goalposts?
I think it's great because it's a clever way to have a little misdirect and get fans to give money to the football program, where we all know it's really not going to go to those goalposts.
Sweet or spicy foods for the rest of your life?
Sweet foods for the rest of my life because I'm not a psychopath.
Now try to say he threw 3 free throws 3 times fast.
He threw 3 free throws. He threw 3 free throws. He threw 3 free throws. Money!
All right, Hutton.
All right, let's go.
What Halloween candy would you pass out to an Alabama fan, and what Halloween candy would you pass out to a Tennessee fan?
I mean, Alabama fan, they need something soft for the teeth that are missing. So we're going with a little Laffy Taffy for them. For Tennessee fans, they get the full bar. Snickers, Butterfinger, anything. We're going big, like a gated community Halloween bash.
What sports did you play growing up, and do you play any still now?
I still play golf, but not well. Growing up, I played basketball, football, a little baseball, golf. Best sport was basketball.
And now, for the rest of the time, show us what your end zone celebration would be.
Oh, the end zone celebration for me is not very good. It's just this, and you hand the football back like you should do. Act like you've been there before, unlike what Withrow would do, which is storm the field and tear down a goalpost and then pay for it.
Sue me.
The second hour is here, Tuesday edition. OutKick 360 from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network. And we lead off the second hour each Tuesday with John McClain. GallerySports.com is where you can find his work. We talk all things NFL with the longtime NFL reporter and Pro Football Hall of Fame selector. John, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. World Series is there. People are fired up. Those tickets are going for $2,500 each in the Crawford boxes. People here will pay for any amount of money to this World Series because they want to win one that nobody can accuse them of being tainted like 2017. There's 5 players left from that 2017 team. They all play a huge role. Justin Verlander, Lance McCullers, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, and Yuli Gurriel. And since they have not been to Citizens Bank Park, they'll be there, and they're already talking about getting out the trash can lids in Philadelphia like that's going to bother the Astros. They've been getting that now for 6 years, especially in New York where they just beat the Yankees. Sorry, Paul.
I'd still like to see Altuve remove his shirt. But since he got like an infield hit and they're dominant without him, maybe they should try somebody else at second base.
John, anything else you'd like to say to Paul after that 4-game sweep with the Astros of the Yankees?
We've spoken. I congratulated him.
I want it publicly on the record. Anything else you'd like to say?
I try to win with class. Paul knows the Astros own the Yankees. It goes back to 2015, really, when they beat them. Dallas Keuchel beat them in the All-Star game, and I'm eager to see, I know as all Yankee fans are, is Aaron Boone going to be able to keep his job?
I sure hope not.
Keep cash? Are they going to keep cash when every Yankee fan I know wants them gone, even though they won 99 games? So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. First and foremost, of course, they got to re-sign Aaron Judge.
I'm to the point where I'd be up for any level of change if they could find the right. Who's your assistant general manager, John? I think that's the guy who maybe should take over the Yankees because he just
got hired by the Giants.
Damn it.
By the way, and he's 33 years old. The previous one before that, they keep losing all their guys in their front office to other teams, which happens when you've been successful. And one of the ways they've done it, homegrown pitchers, they have 7 starters, 6 of them came up through their system, all but Justin Verlander. And I have a column on GallerySports.com about the 1980 Phillies-Astros National League Championship Series, in which the Astros were favored. The Astros had a 2-1 lead. Back then, the format was 5 games, not 7. It was the only round of the playoffs. So here's what happened. Is the 8th inning, they're up. They have a 3-run lead, and Nolan Ryan on the mound. I was in Kansas City watching the Oilers lose to the Chiefs, and they kept the lounge open behind the press box so the Houston media could watch the end of the Phillies-Astros game. And I felt pretty confident with a 3-run lead and Nolan Ryan on the mound, and they lost in extra innings. Of those 5 games, 4 of them, the last 4 went to extra innings, and they called it one of the most exciting playoff series in baseball history. Phillies won their first World Series since 1917.
John McClain with us. We're talking World Series. We're talking NFL as well. And the Titans are about to head to Houston to take on the Texans. That's where John is with us. John, here, the Titans want to run the football, especially, I mean, that's any week, especially with Tannehill banged up if he plays. Even if he doesn't play, they're going to run it a lot this week, and that's the remedy that will work against the Texans' defense. I'm curious, the Titans have also recently signed Chris Conley off the Chiefs practice squad. He was with the Texans.
Kyle Phillips to IR to make room for that.
Okay. What type of factor does that play in anything you've witnessed from Conley and for a team that's not going to throw the football that much because they don't need to?
Well, first of all, let me say about the Texans, they've had a chance to win in the fourth quarter of every game. They led in the fourth quarter in this last game against the Raiders 20-17. In every game, they've had a chance, and only once did they actually win. That was at Jacksonville. And their run defense, which had been better 2 previous games, giving up 108 yards average. Before the first 3, they were 4 games, they were giving up an average of 202. And they had Josh Jacobs, they had him contained in the first half, and then all of a sudden, the second half, they just rammed it down their throats. It's Mike Vrabel type football he wants to play. Even though Davis Mills had a pick 6, they haven't spent much time turning the ball over. They were +3 going into that game. So they haven't beaten themselves with turnovers and penalties. They just physically been beaten by the opposing running backs. So Derrick Henry coming off that 128-yard performance, he ought to be frothing at the mouth for a chance to come down here and run against this defense that he has 5 200-yard. Is it 3 or 5 200-yard games? Something like that. And I believe the last 3 times he's played them, he's had 200 yards.
John, how surprised are you that Matt Ryan was benched in Indianapolis?
Oh, by the way, on Chris Conley.
Yeah.
When you guys get to talk to him, and I hope Chris plays and makes some catches where you can talk to him, because he's one of the best talkers I've ever seen.
Great.
Not a big personality, but breaking down a game. We would get him in there and we would beg for him in there when the locker rooms were not open the last 2 years, because he came in and he was just outstanding at breaking down a game. And we said, man, this guy, if he wants a career in broadcast, when his playing career is over, he'll have it. Chris has had some 40-catch seasons. He's a good guy. He's in shape. I think he will help them. He won't catch a lot of balls, but he did a good job. And I'm really sorry that the Texans didn't keep him because of what a great interview he is. And he's not going to be blowing you away with quotes, but you get him in there and ask him why something happened, and he'll be really good telling you.
Matt Ryan comes to Nashville coming off of a game where he nearly threw for 400 yards against Jacksonville. No interceptions, wasn't sacked in that game. Comes to Nashville, gets knocked around, turns it over a handful of times, 1 pick 6, and as he arrives back in Indianapolis, he's no longer the starting quarterback. Neither's Nick Foles.
He's not going to
go ahead.
He's not going to play this year. Jim Irsay determined that because if they already know he's not going to be their quarterback next year, and they're going to owe him a whole lot of money if he can't pass a physical on a certain day. So they're not going to play him. They don't want to take a chance. They'll be hurt, and then he'll be gone, and they'll be looking for another starting quarterback next year, because Sam Ehlinger from University of Texas, he's a running quarterback. He's really tough. He can make some throws, but he hasn't thrown a pass in the NFL. So I think this means the Titans are going to run away with the division. The Colts will be down there with the Jaguars, and the Texans battling to see who finishes 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Is this their form of tanking, John? When you look at now the need for a long-term solution at quarterback with what the Colts are doing, is this Jim Irsay? I don't even know if rolling the dice with Ehlinger is the right way to put it, but essentially saying it has not worked with Matt Ryan. It's not going to work. We're not even going to try. We're going to play this guy, see what he's got, but ultimately we're going to have a high draft pick and draft our next quarterback.
This is a financial decision. I think it's like $36 million decision that they don't want to do. It's amazing. Matt Ryan still counts $40 million in dead money or on the cap in Atlanta. Now he's counting money against them, and they don't want it to be more. It's going to be a really good quarterback draft. There could be 4 right now, and it could change taken in the top half of the first round, depending on who you like in what spot. And the Colts have tried it every other way. I've never seen a team have to switch quarterbacks every year like they have. And I'm guessing, does this mean that Frank Reich is going to get another season, or does this mean he's gone? Because it's pretty clear a couple of these decisions made were not by him or GM Chris Ballard, but by owner Jim Irsay.
So the Lions were scoring 40+ a week, and the Patriots shut them down, shut them out. They had a bye to recover from that. They come out of it, face another good defense, kick all of 2 field goals against the Cowboys. Everybody was excited about the Lions. I wasn't buying into this garbage. Everybody likes Dan Campbell yapping away. What does Detroit have going for it now?
Well, first of all, Paul, if you look early when they were scoring all those points, Jared Goff was playing really well. He had triple-digit ratings. He wasn't throwing interceptions, throwing touchdown passes. They had 2 running backs. Swift was in and out because of injuries, and he has been their best. But it was amazing what they were doing. And now, for whatever reason, Jared Goff's playing like a lot of people thought Goff would play. And there's another team that's going to pick high that needs a quarterback.
No doubt. John McClain with us. John, the Chiefs faced a little adversity. Mahomes had an interception at San Francisco. 49ers got the ball, went and took a 2-score lead, I believe. And at first glance, it looked like San Francisco at home had a chance to play their style of game. And then Mahomes and company just turned it on. What do you make of Kansas City as of late, even with their loss to Buffalo, knowing what they did now that they go into their bye week, blowing out San Francisco, a team that just acquired Christian McCaffrey?
There's 3 great teams in the NFL right now: Buffalo, Kansas City, and Philadelphia. Everybody was ready to anoint Kyle Shanahan as a genius again because he got Christian McCaffrey, who hadn't been able to stay healthy in 3 years. And then they go out there and get blown out. And Jimmy Garoppolo hadn't played well. And that's the reason that Shanahan wanted Trey Lance. So they're making a run at a Super Bowl. Obviously, they've traded a lot of draft choices. If they hadn't gotten all those picks because they lost minority coaches and front office people, I don't think they'd have been able to pull that off. But they were competing against the Rams for McCaffrey, and they had those extra picks, so they made the move. Ultimately, maybe it works out, but I don't think so with Garoppolo. I just don't see him taking them back to the Super Bowl. As far as the Chiefs look like a team that's going to win the Super Bowl, even though they lost to the Bills. And I hope, as every fan does, that the Bills and the Chiefs are going to play again in the playoffs, probably the AFC Championship game.
I tell you what, guys, the Chiefs played so smartly in that game against San Francisco. They got outside with their speed, but I saw one play, 3rd and 20 they were facing. Everybody mails it in on 3rd and 20, gets a few yards and punts. Middle screen, right? Middle screen, and they get, even if they get 18 yards, the defense celebrates, gets off the field. They convert a middle screen on 3rd and 20. And I just thought to myself when I saw that, this is what makes Andy Reid different than virtually every coach in the league. His middle screen on 3rd and 20 works.
And then Mahomes said that the interception that he threw, they set up San Francisco late in the game on the same type of play. Like he told his team, like, we're going to set them up where they think I'm going to go back to this with a tendency, different. And then we're going to rip them.
They're just different.
And they just have that psychology with him and Kelsey and others that, like you say, Paul, they're just different. John McClain with us. When we come back, a lot of quarterback carousels going on across the league. We've got 2 guys who are in the XFL who just beat Brady and Rodgers. We'll get John's take on that. Plus, what's going on in New England after Monday Night Football with Mac Jones, with Bailey Zappi, with Bill Belichick, and the right quarterback for their system and how they're going to win games. Injuries across the league. We'll get John's take next on OutKick 360.
Was there a moment that you always look back to from Black Hawk Down and you said to yourself in that moment, I am not making it out? Like, I will not survive today because of this one thing.
It was kind of the entire day, the entire night. There was a portion of time, I think, in the middle of the night where things kind of calmed down and it wasn't as chaotic, and we were just kind of sitting waiting for guys in helicopters to get extricated and things like that, and it wasn't until the sun started to kind of peak back up where you're like, oh, this is going to turn back on again. But for the initial assault and 2 or 3 times that I went out into the city, it was just I don't think any of us are going to make it out alive. And so every time we would kind of get back and be secure and all right, get more ammo, and we're going back out to try and find this other crash site. And I didn't think that it was happening for any of us. I kind of came to peace. I was just telling my son about this actually the other day, but I kind of came to peace with, okay, if I get hit in the chest, like I've got a plate carrier hopefully that stops it. If I get hit in the arms or the legs, chances are I'll live. And if I get hit anywhere else, it's probably going to be pretty quick and traumatic and over. So I hope that I remember thinking specifically in the middle of the afternoon, I hope that I can just like look at the blue sky and have something peaceful to look at, not this whole, what I'm looking at in front of me. I hope that's not my last moments. And that kind of gave me a little bit of peace.
This one, I picked it because the caption's just frankly funny. And it's also geotagged your mom's house. It says balls deep, as we used to say, long before it was a popular term. The meaning to us referred to how far into bad guy territory we were. These are a few picks from that day and also a pick of us getting ready to go. We lost a mate on this day, Andy Fernandez. Although he was brand new to the unit, he had just been assigned, he left his mark and will forever be etched into historic endeavors. R.I.P. Andy. So I know you probably can't get into specifics. The caption's hilarious, the top half of it anyways. But Are you able to say anything about what this Instagram post is in relation to?
That was a post gunfight. I think it's been talked about in some book, someplace. So I don't read any military history stuff. So I don't know. People will send me things sometimes where like, oh, this must be from this book that so-and-so wrote about. Like, I don't know. It was kind of post gunfight. We were outnumbered and surrounded by, 130, 150 dudes, and had, at least beat everybody back enough that, that was kind of that moment when that picture was taken. So we didn't necessarily know at the time, like, it was any gunfight is a scary moment, and, you don't really necessarily know the outcome. But it was almost, for me and where I was, it was almost a fun gunfight. Like, they couldn't hit me where I was, and they couldn't hit my group where we were based on the terrain. And so we were almost kind of laughing, running back and forth, shooting at these guys over here, go grab some more ammo, go shoot at these guys over here. And so it wasn't, a terrifying moment. It turned into not to be a terrifying moment. But then we started hearing radio calls, hey, we got some people hit and injured, and okay, well, now this is a serious thing. It's not a funny thing anymore. And if anything, the post kind of reflects that, where,
right.
Initially, hey, haha, fun. This was, a good day. And then, somebody paid the ultimate price that day. And but that's about as much as I can say.
From 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, OutKick 360 rolls on. John McClain with us. We're talking NFL headlines, topics, news with John, who is with GallerySports.com. John, last night, Mac Jones, first 2 possessions of the game, first time he's played since the end of September with that high ankle sprain. 3 and outs, third possession, interception. In comes Bailey Zappi. Is Bailey Zappi about to take over full time, or is this going to be a back and forth that Bill Belichick hasn't had to deal with throughout his time there in New England?
I'm not buying for a second Belichick's explanation. He told both quarterbacks they were going to play. What if Mac Jones had come out and led touchdown drives? Of course, he would have stayed in. He was not ready to play. And they brought Zappe in. He looked really good on his 2 touchdowns. And then he didn't play worth a darn. The defense didn't play worth a darn. I think when you draft Mac Jones where you did, and he showed a lot of promise last season, except down the stretch when he faded and he had to bring them from behind, which is something he wasn't used to because he didn't have to do it at Alabama. I think I saw he's like 2-7 in his last 9 games. But Bailey's happy who he is. He's got 4 years at Houston Baptist, transferred 1 season, Western Kentucky, threw 60 touchdown passes. And yes, he's a folk hero up there. But right now, it looks to me like Belichick has got a lot of problems on both sides of the ball, and quarterback is one of them. I don't think anybody feels sorry for him one bit.
So speaking of a team with a lot of problems, Tampa Bay. John, what kind of chance do you give Tom Brady and the Bucs to turn this thing around? Because coming into the season, and we've talked about on this show, Brady's talking about getting right back in the championship mix and having a chance at the Super Bowl. But looking at this roster, what are the Bucs right now? And how do they turn it around after 2 really bad losses?
They're a losing team, and I think they're in a state of disarray. The things about Brady, it looks like he should have stayed retired. If indeed that would have saved his marriage. He's got a lot of things going off the football field. There was a story last week that Giselle has hired the top divorce lawyer in Florida to take him on. That means it's going to be ugly and drawn out with kids involved. He took time off during camp. He took time off last week to go to Robert Kraft's party. I think that was a bad look. He missed walkthroughs on Saturday. And I don't care how great he is and how many rings he's got. You can't do that. You know, when he was cussing out his offensive lineman last week, they're thinking, well, at least we were here. And he looks like a quarterback who's ready to retire. They got problems up front. We knew that was going to happen. Their defense was so good in the first game against the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. There's no resemblance to that defense early in the season and what they're playing right now. The only saving grace, the NFC South is awful. Who's the best team right now?
It's hard to know. The NFC South isn't very good. The NFC North isn't very good either. Do you give Aaron Rodgers a better chance to salvage what's going on with the Packers than you do Brady a chance to salvage what's going on with the Bucs? Because the Packers are about to go up to Green Bay and take a beating.
I think that the Bucs have the best chance because the defense is terrible. There's no other good team. Now, whether we buy into the Vikings or not, under Kevin O'Connell in his first season, it looks like that division is so bad they can win it. But, you know, the problem that, according to what Aaron Rodgers said, is they make mental mistakes 20% of the time. And if you make them, you shouldn't be playing. And he's been mad about the receiver situation all along. It wasn't the Packers' fault that Devontae Adams left. He said Packers offered him more than the Raiders did, but he wanted to go back home and play with his good buddy Derek Carr. And they got a bunch of young receivers making one mistake after another, and they can't run the ball anymore. It's weird. Brady, Rodgers, and Russell Wilson. If you think about how much money those guys make and where they are right now, they're in big trouble. The Bucs don't have a quarterback behind him. Looks to me like Tampa is going to be another team looking for a quarterback after this season.
John, as you begin to look through the NFL standings right now and know that a week from today, when you'll join us, we'll be leading up to the NFL trade deadline. How difficult is it to figure out who's going to buy or who's potentially selling with a league that is 3-4 or 4-3, and a lot of teams that feel like they're in it just because they're as mediocre as everyone else and they have as good of a shot as anyone else to make a run?
And let's look at the NFC South. Buccaneers, as bad as they are, they're still the best team. I mean, the Saints have won 2 games. The Panthers have won, 2 games? Yep. And then Atlanta's won 3. I think Arthur Smith's doing a really good job over there with not a whole lot of talent around him. The Bucs have won 3. So if you think you're on the ropes, you got a chance to make the playoffs, I don't think you should be mortgaging the future to try to get in the playoffs where he could be a one and done. And there's a lot of teams in that situation.
Think about this for the NFC South. The Panthers, with a win, they would move into sole possession of first place with a win against the Falcons and a Buccaneers loss to Baltimore. And this is a team that is doing a fire sale, with P.J. Walker at quarterback. McCaffrey's now in San Francisco. Isn't it crazy that we've got multiple divisions like this?
And Baltimore's another disappointing team. Lamar Jackson's not playing well at all. He started fast, and everybody's, he's like Aaron Judge. He's bet on himself, and he's going to make even more millions. And right now, he's struggling, as are the Ravens. As far as the Panthers, Steve Wilkes, who was a one and done at Arizona, he got the victory. Everybody was happy for him. P.J. Walker was Houston's quarterback during the last version of XFL, in which they were the only team in the league, and he was real good. And his coach, June Jones, a good friend of mine, told me, he said, if anybody gives that kid a chance and they coach him well and put him in a system that fits his ability, he's going to win because he's a winner. Now, I don't know if he can sustain it. It is the Panthers, but for 1 week at least, it's a great story. And if indeed they could beat the Falcons, it'd be an even better story. But I just can't imagine Tom Brady and the Buccaneers not winning that bad division.
Yeah, I tend to lean that way too. Their offensive line, though, it's really bad. They can't run the football either. Brady's throwing it 50 times a game out of necessity, not out of game plan. They used to throw it 50 times and then run it 35 times the following week in New England. It's not the case in Tampa right now. That from a very average to below average division to the best division, which is the NFC East, a combined 20-7 is their record within that division. No other NFC division has fewer than 14 losses. How do you stack up what we're seeing in the East?
Well, I'm shocked. I thought it would be the Cowboys and the Eagles, and one of them would win the division. Nobody could envision what's happened with the Giants and even Washington coming off a victory with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. That's been a huge surprise. And it's interesting because that's the division AFC South plays, plus AFC South plays AFC West, so it's a tough schedule. And I keep thinking, how are the Giants going to be able to sustain this? You would think Saquon Barkley would be facing 8-man fronts, but Daniel Jones, if he's running for 100 yards, if he's doing an impersonation of Lamar Jackson, and then I guess they can keep winning. I keep waiting for the Giants and the Jets bubble to burst, and I think if one does, it would be the Jets because of personnel losses, mainly Brees Hall, their terrific rookie running back.
Speaking of the Giants in Seattle this weekend in a matchup of what to me qualifies the two best, most surprising stories of the NFL season. Who do you think comes out on top here of the two surprises? And it's interesting that the two biggest surprises of the NFL season, their quarterbacks are playing well, sure, but they're not what we would call good quarterbacks.
And Pete Carroll's not stupid. And when he went with Geno Smith, everybody thought he was stupid. He's got Rashard Penny as running back, season-ending injury, so he's taught Kenneth Walker III, and he's played two great games. They have two rookie offensive tackles. Geno Smith is not getting beat. He's actually making some throws. I saw odds on a comeback player of the year today on a Vegas line, and that's Saquon Barkley. I said, I don't remember him being out last year. To me, comeback player of the year right now is Geno Smith because the Seahawks are in first place, and who would have thunk it? Nobody, including Seahawks fans.
And, John, I just keep coming back to how bad this makes Russell Wilson look in all of this. It's not just that he's been so bad in Denver. It's that the Seahawks, who we laughed at, who acted like they were going to be okay this year with Geno Smith, they improved getting rid of Russell Wilson at quarterback with Geno Smith, and that shocks me.
Yeah, I read a deep dive into the Russell Wilson trade. I think it was on The Athletic by the guy that covers them, talked about things that the Seahawks think he couldn't do the way he did. arm strength, the way he roll right or left and find receivers down the field. He just declined. So that's why they made the trade. And think about this. They got 2 1s, 2 2s, and 3 players, including 2 who are starting. That is going to hurt the Broncos for quite a while because we went through that in Houston when Bill O'Brien traded 2 1s and the 2 for left tackle Laramie Tunsil, who's playing great, but still he's a left tackle, a receiver, Kenny Stills, and so that hurt them not having number 1 pick the previous 2 years or 2, and that could affect that franchise for the next 4 or 5 years. And Geno Smith's a great guy. I think everybody's happy for him. Now they could fade. Maybe the Rams are going to come back. Maybe the 49ers are going to come back, but it's still a great story, just like the Giants and the Jets.
Metcalf's banged up. He's not going to need surgery on his knee injury in Seattle, but could miss a game. I know he said he hopes to play this week against New York, but Pete Carroll admitted yesterday, he's like, I really have no clue what the practice regimen or what his timetable is going to be, because they were very vague on specifics at that point based on results of a test. But without Metcalf, I think they lean more on the run game. Kenneth Walker III, John, has been very good in his 2 games. He's got around 300 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. In the 2 games that he started, I should say. He's now the bell cow back in Seattle.
For a team that likes to run it, they still have Lockett and they have Noah Fant, former first-round pick. They got in that trade from Denver, so they can still throw the ball. Metcalf's not the whole receiving game, but they are a run-oriented first team, which is one of the reasons Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson clashed, because Wilson wanted to throw the ball more and wanted to dictate what that offense did. I tell you what's going to be interesting. I don't think Denver can cut him because of the contract, but they can bring in a new coach. And when you are a Walmart executive who married into the family, I think you could pay Sean Payton $30 million a year, $40 million a year, and you wouldn't feel it at all. And see if Sean Payton can come into the Broncos and do what needs to be done. But the problem with that, the Saints want draft choices. They don't have them.
Bears, looked awfully good last night. You think they figured out something in a bye week there and can move forward and be more successful? They're tied with the Packers. I don't know what they've done head to head, but
Packers won.
Or do you feel like it's a nice 1-game aberration, but your talent level is going to take you where it's going to take you?
I saw them beat the Texans at Soldier Field. Texans should have won that game. Justin Fields was awful. Now, they ran the ball well, ran for almost 300 yards. Khalil Herbert had to replace Montgomery, who got hurt early, and he just killed the Texans, did a great impersonation of Derrick Henry. And then the Justin Fields I watched last night was the Justin Fields they thought they were getting when they used a high draft choice on him, but now he needs some consistency. But I think that game last night was just stunning. Not that they pulled an upset. A lot of teams are pulling upsets, but that it was so decisive.
Yeah, and the way they did it, like the Patriots' run defense had been really good, and they were gashed in that game. And Justin Fields has his best game as a pro. I was with Keith Bullock last night, John, and he says, like, man, I feel good for Justin Fields that he's finally having a good game because it's been a struggle. And he did it against a defense that's known for taking away the top weapon.
I think that the game plan must not have been targeting him as the top weapon.
I guess.
Because they sure didn't do a very good job of it. When the Bears get some talent around him, like a wide receiver besides Darnell Mooney, I think he can be better, but he needs some consistency. This is by far the best games. Can he sustain it?
I think it'd be tough to watch film of the Bears and figure out a top weapon going into that game.
Yeah, that's fair too. Yeah,
right?
The top weapon's their punter, I guess, at that point.
I mean, I guess it's Mooney, but...
Yeah. John...
Roquan Smith is their top weapon.
Yeah.
Going back to the Bucs, does another loss automatically trigger Bruce Arians' discussion in Tampa?
About trying to get him to come back?
Well,
coach?
at least... I know Todd Bowles had said that they were not going to ask Arians his thoughts on reviving the offense. This is a couple weeks ago.
They ought to be.
And if things continue down this path, I mean, the guy's in the building. Don't they have to include him in this?
Or if they did, they might not want to admit it. Todd Bowles won 10 games one year with the Jets. Then he got fired. And everybody keeps saying he's going to be a head coach. He's going to be a really good head coach because he's a great coordinator, one of the best caller of blitzes in NFL history. But right now, I don't think it's his fault. It wasn't his fault that they lost their center and 2 guards. And it's not his fault they've had injuries at wide receiver. But if you got Bruce Arians there, I think you'd be foolish not to pick his brain. But the fact is, you got a quarterback with 7 Super Bowl rings. I don't know how bought in he is. Usually his dedication is so impressive because he wants to win so bad he'd do anything to win. Well, this year he's not doing anything he can to win.
Yeah, and knowing that Arians stepped away when he did, and the comments at the time was, I'm setting up Todd Bowles for the best chance at success. There's no way he's going to stand aside and watch him get fired with Tom Brady as his quarterback.
He's not going to interfere. That's something Todd Bowles is going to want. I think we'd be stupid to think they weren't talking to Arians about what's going on with that offense right now.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm trying to read between the lines there. They've got to do something. And, maybe they're not there yet, because we've already agreed where they are in their division. They can still win the division, get in, and then we see what happens. But I think they're a loss away from really having to restructure some things. Going through some of the other teams that are playing at a high level, but not really there yet. You mentioned Baltimore. They're struggling, but yet they're winning. They won based on the fact that their special team scored this past week, and they beat the Cleveland Browns. Now that Tua is back in Miami, what does that mean for the Dolphins? And do you think that they get back on the same track that they were on prior to his concussion?
I think they're better than the Jets. They're better than the Patriots. They're not close to the Bills because nobody in that division is. But when Tua came back, and the longer he plays, if he can stay healthy, he's been injured every year he's been in football, every year. And so there's a good chance he's going to get hurt again. But if he can stay healthy with that offense they have and a defense is better than a lot of people thought, then they're a wild card team.
2 more. Where are the Chargers in all of this?
Huge disappointment, just a huge disappointment. Now they got a lot of injuries, and Justin Herbert is not playing as well as he did last year or the year before. Don't know why. They played here. Texans had a chance to beat them in the 4th quarter. He threw a winning touchdown pass to secure the victory, but they have not been nearly as impressive as I thought they would be. That was my Super Bowl team.
Mine too.
And the Jets lose Breece Hall. He's done with the torn ACL and a meniscus injury. They trade for James Robinson. The Jets are in the mix here. Do you think they actually continue their trend of winning games the way they're winning, which is through the run, based on the fact that they've made this trade for Robinson?
They also lost a starting guard yesterday. I can't remember his name.
Elijah Vera Tucker.
Yes, Elijah Vera Tucker. He's done. So they lost 2 key members of their offense. They've won the last 2 games with Zach Wilson throwing for 115, 120 yards. How long can they keep that up? That's because they ran the ball well and they play great defense. I think the Jets would fade because of that. And if they need him to throw for 280 and come from behind, can he do it? I feel better about the Giants than the Jets.
Do pictures of Titans homecoming weekend make their way to Houston, where Warren Moon is talking to the crowd and Dan Pastorini is sticking a sword in the ground here? And if so, how upsetting is that to people down there?
I think people, there was nothing about it other than what the things I tweeted that I saw you guys put out. There was no talk about it on the talk shows. There was last year, and but there's not this year, because I think people know that the Oilers don't belong to the Texans. They belong to the Titans. All those guys are still here. Warren Moon's not. He's in L.A. But I see Dan Pastorini at events all the time. And so they are always going to be Houston, and they're going to be memories for Houston, but they have nothing to do with Texas.
John McClain with us. GallerySports.com is the website. That website owned by Mattress Mack, who is going to be our guest tomorrow.
That's going to be fun
on the show. John, for those who don't know, will you explain the big bet that he has on the Astros and the World Series?
Let me tell you about Mattress Mack. He came from Dallas. He opened a furniture store with 3 people in 1981, started doing commercials on TV, doing all kind of charity stuff. And he's on TV and radio constantly with ads. He approached me in May about starting a sports gambling website. Would I be interested in coming to work with him? And so I said, well, what about calling it Gallery Sports? And I did. I'm one of 2 full-time employees. Everybody else does freelance. And a week ago, I went to a children's center. There were some local people invited, and there were Hall of Fame players. And they introduced us to 300 high school kids, and a polite applause. Mattress Mack, I'd invited him. He comes late. As he walks up, they start cheering for him, and they run to him to get their pictures made with him. And if the Astros win, he gets $75 million. He's on the front of ESPN's website right now. Forbes did a story on him 2 weeks ago, Bleacher Report the week before that. And he's going to have the biggest payout in history of our country, $75 million. And his ads say, buy $4,000 worth of furniture, Astros win the World Series, you get it free. And of course, if they win, he gets $75 million. He's not losing any money. And then if they don't, he sold millions and millions worth of furniture. And he's got it down.
Hedging his happiness.
Brilliant.
And he is a great guy. He's a great guy to work for. And everybody likes and respects him. You guys will have fun talking to him. He appreciates you having him on. In fact, OutKick's got a story on him right now.
Yep.
On OutKick as well. And if they win that thing, I told him, wherever you go, keep talking about gallerysports.com and let people know there's no paywall. It's free.
You going to the game this Friday?
I don't know. Nobody's offered me a ticket yet. If somebody offers me a ticket, I'll go.
That'll change.
I've been writing about 3 Astros columns a week. I write 4 times for the Texans on my radio station's website, and it's fun to write about a winner, let me tell you.
John's phone is blowing up right now that he just revealed that he's not been offered
sit
a ticket
in my
yet.
box. No,
People
sit
are
in my
saying,
box.
Come on, John, I got you.
No,
Let's go.
no,
World Series.
sit with me.
Maybe he's throwing in first pitch again.
Have you been invited back to any Rockets games to throw out the free throw after your performance?
They just played their first game at home last night, beat Utah. Since I shot the first free throw for charity and was honored in their last game of the year for my retirement. I kind of feel guilty about my retirement, considering I'm working so much. But people seem to understand I retired from the Chronicle.
Yes. Yeah. At McLean_on_NFL. He'll never retire, the Twitter handle. You can find him there.
Greatness
John,
never retires.
Thank you as always, and we look forward to next week with you.
Thanks. See you this weekend.
Guys, it's my pleasure. Paul, I look forward to it. Jonathan, look forward to it. Cadillac, I'll see you when I see you.
Have a great week, John.
There he is. John McClain, gallerysports.com, and we look forward to chatting with Mattress Mack tomorrow. Also there with Gallery Sports. Coming up, the $75 million that he could win on the World Series. We'll discuss the millions that the Yankees are going to need to spend on Aaron Judge. That is officially upon us now, as that's the next chapter in all of this in New York. Now that we, at least I think we know, the GM and the manager, they'll be back, right?
Well, GM.
Now it's about keeping Judge in place. We'll discuss what's at stake here when we return on OutKick 360.
Good. Continuing with our interviews, I guess you call them, conversations, however you want to phrase it. I'm here with some Colts fans. This is a good group here. Where are you guys from?
We actually came all the way from Pennsylvania. Bangor, to be exact.
Okay, so Pennsylvania, but you're Colts fans. Please explain.
Well, our one buddy was a diehard Colts fan, and he threw the best parties in the world. And we followed him all the way through, and we went to all the parties, and eventually you got to become a Colts fan.
Is your other buddy a Seattle Mariners fan, and you're just magically a Mariners fan also? Are we Phillies right now? Okay, good. She's got the Phillies there. So Phillies, Colts, what other weird combinations of teams do you guys root for?
That's kind of it.
And the Eagles. The Eagles. And Yankees.
Yeah, so this could be a World Series matchup if the Yankees come back from 3-0. Yankees, Phillies. Colts. So we're here for the Titans game, right? Yeah. How are we feeling?
We're feeling real confident. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Matt Ryan got on track last week. Second half of the game, he passed for over 250 yards alone. Jonathan Taylor's coming back from injury. I mean, I think it's going to be a rout.
Ma'am, are you with him? Do you claim him?
I do, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Today.
Do you think that it's going to be a blowout?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, well, the fact that Matt Ryan cannot hold on to the football doesn't concern you at all?
Well, that is a little troublesome. And there is this guy named Buck McCoy that told us yesterday the Colts are going to win on a last-second field goal. So maybe the blowout won't be in play, but definitely a Colts victory.
When I say Jacksonville Jaguars, what comes to mind for you?
Disgust. Pure disgust, yeah. They're just not as good as people think they are, and it is what it is.
Is Frank Reich going to be the coach next year for the Colts? I can tell right away. She's the one that's got the answer.
Absolutely. He's the best. I'm a huge Frank fan.
Why exactly?
She said a few minutes ago he was very sexy for an older man.
I just love
and I allowed it. I allowed it.
You think that Matt Ryan, or no, sorry, you think Frank Reich is a silver fox? Is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely, yes.
Does he look like one of the older guys in Mad Men? Is that the vibe that he puts off?
I never thought of that, but yes, yeah.
This is what I do. I give people ideas. They're great ideas, and they run with it. Everyone here is saying Colts by 1 million today, right?
I'm going to say it's going to be close. I'm calling 24-21 Colts.
Phi Kappa Charma told me they're going to rout them. It's going to be over early.
I'm going 31-10 Colts.
31-21 Colts.
One other thing, this always confuses me about Indianapolis. What is the culinary tradition of Indianapolis? Nashville, they're trying to latch on to hot chicken right now. Barbecue, southern food, soul food. If I said Indianapolis food, what comes to mind first?
French fries.
Loaded tots.
Loaded tots.
This just in, everyone. Indianapolis does not have a culinary tradition because they went with French fries. That'll do it here.
All right, Paul. How worried or concerned, not worried, how concerned are you as now that the Yankees season has wrapped up, they fall in 4 games, and the attention has been on Judge all year. Now it's about, will the Yankees give him an offer that is going to be acceptable by him to not look around and, be recruited? Because you know how that ends up if he...
Well, I'm worried. It came out immediately, like the Dodgers are interested in Mookie Betts to second base. The Giants have long been mentioned, the Cubs, the Mets. But also, I think there's a world in which, and you guys are going to, you'll jump on me immediately, and I understand why. I think there's a world in which it wouldn't be the worst thing if they knew what they were doing, if they let him go. And I think it'd be bad for 3 years, but I think year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of it would be good. They have most of the time, when you sign a guy, I'm thinking of Billy Beane. When you sign a guy to this massive contract, maybe the first couple of years it turns out to be it. In the end, it kills you. And if they were smart enough to know how to reallocate these funds and get themselves a Houston-like pitching staff and find some kids who come up in the system and produce, and they could spread this money around and still have a very high payroll, but do it in a way where they produced a better playoff caliber team, I would be satisfied, because what they were this year was Judge and whoever else is hot. And then Judge wasn't hot in the playoffs, and nobody else was hot in the playoffs, and they're 4 and done.
Well, it works. It works though, but you have to find. You're not going to find another Aaron Judge, but you got to find a suitable replacement in the lineup.
Yeah, can you replace him with 3 dudes?
Here's the example: what the Braves did, letting Freddie Freeman walk, and then they trade for Matt Olson.
Matt Olson, right?
Who's just a younger version of Freddie Freeman, who doesn't hit for as good of an average, but is a power hitting first baseman who's in the Gold Glove conversation every year at first base.
So there's Brian Reynolds. He's a center fielder in Pittsburgh. He's more of a contact hitter. He's more of an average hitter. I wouldn't mind them being more of a contact team. Stanton handcuffs them because he can't play in the damn outfield. And I'm sick of guys who can't play in the damn outfield. But he's your power guy, but he's always hurt.
So let me ask it this way. How concerned are you if they re-sign him that this year was the anomaly where...
Yeah, and then next year he's hurt.
He's hurt, which is what
I am
the trend
concerned
has
about
been.
that. I'm concerned that they re-sign him for $1 billion, and
I
that
think
4 weeks into next season he's on the deal.
See, I think there's a scenario where either way, this regime is screwed.
Yeah.
If they bring
Can't
him back
win
and
with
he's hurt,
can't
then
win without.
Yeah, and if they don't
But
get
they'll
him,
win 93 games and lose in the playoffs.
By the way, there's a report out there from SNY that both Cashman and Boone are safe. That they're not going anywhere.
So what happened? Are they safe if Judge leaves?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a very
Cashman's making the decision. Cashman's making the decision.
It's a very odd report that says Hal Steinbrenner could change his mind if the fan reaction is negative enough.
Cashman makes a decision now on Judge.
Yeah.
Cashman controls the contract.
I always viewed this as...
He's 1 year into a 3-year contract.
This is the player they cannot have leave, right?
Well, in terms of being the face of the team, the
he now
marketing
owns
thing,
a record
he's the home run guy.
Ruth and Maris.
Yes. And, look, who was it? Nestor Cortez said, I would expect if he's back, he's the captain. And Yankee captain is they don't hand it out. And if he's back, he should be the captain because he carries himself like a Yankee captain.
What's it? So
he's gonna re-sign with the Yankees. I just feel
the team that scares me the most. See, the thing is, we don't know what he wants. Does he want to be the highest paid? Does he want the highest average? Does he want the longest contract?
Like he turned down he turned down that money, bet on himself, and then did this. I don't even there's no way you could predict what he was about to do.
But there's not been a single whisper about what he wants. Longest, most.
I bet the Yankees know.
Yeah, whatever. And here's the team that scares me the most: the Giants, because he's from the Bay Area. I don't think he'd go to the Mets. I think he's got a Yankee loyalty to him. Not that he's given them right of first refusal or anything like that, but he knows going to the Mets would be a huge slap at a team that gave him his chance, that he holds a record for.
I don't think he cares
about
that at all.
I do.
I think he cares about the Giants because he's from there.
In terms of the Mets, I think he cares.
Michael
he
McKinry
was kissing
will be
the Yankees logo,
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
McKinry will be on later this week, and we've asked JP and Sibby as well. around league circles, what's the chatter been? And a lot of the talk is people are talking like he could leave, and I'm stunned by that. I really am. You've been on this for all season though, where you're kind of you don't want to say it's a huge issue, but I think it would be if they let him go.
Oh,
because
I think
of
it's
the
a huge
perception of where
issue.
they are versus where they were when they were keeping anybody they wanted and signing anybody
Well,
they
if
wanted.
he goes, they've got to revamp in a life-shattering way.
Yep.
Rethink.
Headlines coming up. Then we talk A&M football. If you're looking for a place to bet on a game today or a futures wager, head to OutKick's Odds Finder. OutKick.com/odds. It's where you'll find spreads, totals, and moneyline odds for every upcoming game. I love it because it's super easy to navigate. Bookmark OutKick.com/odds and make OutKick bets a part of your daily sports betting routine. For bets decided by season-long results, head to OutKick's Futures Finder. OutKick.com/futures. Just select your state, place your bet. It's honestly that simple. And similar to the Futures Finder, the Prop Bet Finder allows you to search by player, team, or game for any sport. Check out the OutKick.com/props, and from there, click the Odds tab. You'll go directly to the Sportsbook to place your bet. Boost your game day experience with OutKick Bets. OutKick.com/bet. Get the edge with OutKick Bets. Glad you're with us. Final hour is here. OutKick 360 on this Tuesday edition. 6th and Peabody. Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine on tap. We hope that you will find us on social media at OutKick 360 is where you can search, and that's also how you search out the podcast. Wherever you download your audio, we hope you'll share and rate and review, all that good stuff. Plus, subscribe on YouTube. Just search us out.
Do all of
OutKick
it.
360. Do it all.
Everything you can do, do it. Get off the fence. Stop thinking about it. Be a person of action and do it. Follow, like, subscribe. Everything you can do, do it. That's our message to you.
Some freshmen have been suspended at Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher's offense is not good. Billy Lucci is excellent. TexAgs.com. Billy will join us in about 20 minutes, and we'll have a conversation with him by phone on where the program is right now, what's going on with the suspensions, and is Jimbo Fisher capable of adapting his offense to the 2022 college football landscape, because it's not close to anything like that right now. Billy will be with us in 20 minutes. Always look forward to that conversation. The Browns, according to reports, they are listening to trade offers on Kareem Hunt as well as cornerback Greedy Williams. So we just had a conversation with John on, who's buying, who's selling. There was a scenario where the Browns could be at least tied for first place in their division had they won last week. That didn't happen. They returned back to Cleveland with just 2 wins, same as when they left for Baltimore. And now, by all accounts, they've got Nick Chubb. He's running at a very high level. Kareem Hunt, who I believe has asked for a trade in the past. He's producing at a high level when he has it, but he's the number 2 running back there clearly. And Cleveland has a chance to pick up some picks for a back that can certainly come in and help.
They'll probably get the same thing that Jacksonville just got, a 6 that converts into a 5th.
Yeah, but
I think he's better.
I wonder if the offer was even, like you're getting Robinson instead of Hunt, and the style maybe fits the Jets a bit more, but I'm curious to see if maybe the Jets tried to get Hunt first.
I think
based on
Hunt
this.
would fit the Bills, who went after McCaffrey.
Yep.
He's a pass catcher. News in here from Adam Schefter, the Chiefs defensive end, Frank Clark, suspended 2 games for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. Don't know if there's an incident.
Old thing?
I don't know if there's an incident in this last game. I'm thinking there was something, but I'm not remembering what it was. So that's a big loss for the Chiefs. He's a stud guy up front for them, obviously, and he was involved in the one of the controversial roughing calls that was not a roughing call.
So what has happened? This stems, I think, this is personal conduct policy?
Yeah.
He had a gun charge last year that was just
adjudicated,
wrapped up. No, it was just he gets probation for a gun charge in Los Angeles.
So this has been hanging over his head.
Yeah, so they finally wrapped that up legally, and I think the NFL is...
Yeah, he pled no contest to gun charges on September 8th and received probation for pleading no contest. So the league clearly just got done with whatever they were doing with that.
Unless there's something else in the game that we don't know about. But.
Yeah, this was over legally on September 8th, but the league decided now on a 2-game suspension.
I bet you mentioned Christian McCaffrey and the Bills being involved. So the other reports, the Eagles, Bills, and Broncos were in it with the Panthers over Christian McCaffrey.
Eagles contender, Bills contender, Broncos not a contender.
Who do the Broncos think they're fooling right now?
I don't know. But most of the teams that we're hearing, looking into these players, aren't teams that are like, hey, this guy could help us get into this or stay into this. They are teams that are there who are saying, this guy can solidify our already super solid case as Super Bowl favorites, which is I like. I mean, I like that the Eagles of all teams would go make a move. Yeah. That the Bills, I mean, those are the 2 favorites, and those are the 2 teams that are at the top of this list thinking about making a move that would strengthen them even further.
The Broncos thinking about making this move just makes me mad.
Yeah. Right. Well, the Broncos, everything they do right now makes us mad.
Well, I mean,
let's get them off TV.
I understand it's about the best price you're going to get if you're the team trading them away, but come on. This is not a team that should be buying right now in this season.
Not now, but 2 weeks ago they didn't have 2 other losses. So it's a different landscape then when they're calling. And clearly no one's coming close to the offer that San Francisco just gave up in exchange. But, the big discussion was his salary. And Philadelphia signs A.J. Brown. They're about to pay Jalen Hurts. Right? Like, he's earned it to this point, barring injury. And they're about to pick up the salary of Christian McCaffrey. Like, the teams that are all in and make a run and go win a Super Bowl, like the Rams last year, I wonder, does that change the perception of how teams are now going for it? The teams that are kind of the surprise teams, the Jets, the Seahawks, they've got rookie classes building through the draft that have really overperformed top to bottom for a rookie class of what we've seen. Giants certainly in that mix too. And then you've got the veteran-heavy teams with some prove-it years. Miami went for it with Tyreek Hill. That has certainly paid off, pairing him with Waddle and Tua. And now Jalen Hurts. They've already given him plenty, and they were in the mix for Christian McCaffrey.
Got to like those Philly organizations right now.
Jim Nance calling his final four this coming March/April. I guess
Final
it's early
tie.
April for him in 2023.
When Chad and I heard of this, that's the first thing Chad said. The final tie will be given out. Now, we know he stopped giving out the tie because of the grief he took, but that doesn't stop us from pretending like this ridiculous tradition has continued.
So he's just leaving the Final Four.
Yeah, he's still with CBS Sports.
So he's going to continue NFL, but it's also in the report. They got in touch with Jim Nance, who says, there's just a time to be with family. And that's what I've decided to do now. And I'm thinking, you're stepping away from one weekend, a month, like no NCAA tournament or just the Final Four. He's got a 6 and an 8-year-old with a second wife. So he was picking up his kids from school or dropping them off when he took the phone call and said, now's the time to be with family, which, Paul, you and I kind of joked. I'm thinking, well, he's still going to do the Masters, PGA,
NBA,
NFL.
And even if we presume it's
he's
all
only
of March
63,
Madness,
by the way,
it's
which
3
shocked
weeks.
me.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't it feel like Jim Nance should be in his 70s for as long as he's been at the top of his game? He's only 63 years old.
So this is 3 weeks worth of basketball. I mean, I guess you're picking to give something up, but
anyway,
so it's going straight to Augusta. So 3 weeks is 3 weeks. He's giving up one section of his work.
It's not that big of a deal for Jim Nance. It's a big deal for college basketball fans that
Big
watch
deal
the
for
Final
me. I want
Four.
him.
But it's not going to be a huge adjustment for him. Ian Eagle is going to be who's taking over for Jim Nance.
It won't be the same event without his voice on it, the way this baseball has not been the same event without Joe Buck's voice on it.
Well, someone else that's going to be joining the mix at CBS and Turner is Jay Wright, who is now going to be calling games for Turner CBS, and he'll be a part of NCAA tournament, I believe, studio shows is where he's going to be. Now, maybe
he'd be great
that's
anyway.
a guy you put on there with I don't know if you're going away from Raftery and Grant Hill with Ian Eagle, but maybe he's a part of the mix with Ian Eagle on a Final Four broadcast too, eventually.
I think Ian Eagle is just the best pure broadcaster going right now.
He's terrific.
And he's the one guy at the top of his craft that isn't calling a championship of some sort. Now he's got that. First and foremost, Ian Eagle's great. I think he'll be excellent choice. Nance, in his comments about this, chose this to be the final year for him for the Final Four because of the location and the network. So CBS and TBS or Turner, they were alternating years. This is a CBS year coming up, and it's in Houston, which is where he started his broadcasting career. So he's wrapping it up there, and this does give him some sort of off season. I know he's got the Masters, but he was doing both in that whirlwind.
But what's he doing
month
between
and a half.
the end of football and the beginning of March Madness?
Well, prior to that, he would call some college basketball games on CBS.
Okay. So he's giving up college basketball.
Or he may do the random
Final Four.
PGA event.
Yeah, right.
That
He's
happens
got some
during
golf,
that time.
Yeah.
So he's doing some golf and then no more basketball.
He's still the voice of every other property on CBS.
But we're
pro-wise.
presuming this means no more basketball, not just no more Final Four.
That's how I take it. But it is they have worded this as his final four. He took over for Brent Musburger in '91, and then now Ian Eagle takes over for him as he steps aside. And Musburger was over a contract dispute.
So
this
30
is not.
years of.
He was great.
That's a good.
I love him
good.
on anything he calls.
No, he's terrific.
And Ian Eagle will be terrific also.
I told you guys I had the pleasure of talking with him on the phone when I was getting ready to present Rune Arledge on the contributors and coach committee for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he was, I mean, everything you expect. Just a terrific conversation. Made me feel like I was super important, which I certainly am not, and really cool.
And I'll never he and Romo. It was Romo's first game, preseason game, Titans and Bears. It was their first time together calling a game. Titans radio. We were in on that Saturday. It was or Friday or Saturday. I can't remember.
Setting up.
Where the guy. I don't know if the game was on a Friday or Saturday, but the previous day we would go in and set up for the first broadcast at Nissan Stadium for that particular year. And we were set up at the time right next to the TV booth. We've moved down but they moved down 2 booths since then. But the national network crew for that game was Nance and Romo's first game. And they were in there calling like this random, I don't know how they selected the game, but they were calling it off the monitor. Nance was there with him, and Romo was calling it off the monitor with Nance, going first through fourth quarter. They did the entire game, breaks, all of it.
You could overhear it?
Yeah.
Was the door open?
No, I mean, you could hear them going. Yeah, I mean, it was very quiet.
Their window was open and your window was open.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were rehearsing, but Romo was taking the time to do it, and Nance was making sure, like, he set him up on the pacing and then,
so were they stopping and doing stuff like that, or did they just run?
No, they just did it. They did it all the way through.
Yeah.
It was...
That's cool.
I gained a lot of respect for both of them because there are some teams that just kind of broadcast teams just kind of show up and roll it out, right? Like
usually
sounds like
not the top ones.
Sounds like Sean McDonough and John Gruden did that, right, on Monday Night Football. That was not the case with Nance and Romo. And Romo's different because you got to he's setting him up differently for things.
Some of the stuff I just feel like it seems awfully self-important. I'm listening to Troy Aikman and Joe Buck talk about the amount of people they have around the booth for a Monday Night Football game, and I'm thinking, come on.
He's got his own
go
little stats
do the
guy.
game. They get paid a lot of money to do the game and do all the research and watch all the film and get ready for one game a week. And I'm thinking, you don't need that many people around that broadcast as well. They put a lot into it. They got a lot. They definitely put a lot into it.
And then Joe Buck
Which
at the
great
time.
for them. I mean, I'm not hating. That's terrific if they get that much help.
But Joe Buck at the time
I
was
think
going
some of it's
from
overkill.
Thursday Night Football. He was doing Thursday Night Football. Then he would have World Series, and then he'd fly in for a Sunday game on Fox and meet Aikman there. So you're doing all this prep, and their crews are incredible. You're right, though, Chad. They're deep.
This is when he lost his voice. Didn't he have a polyp issue? Joe Buck, remember when he had the voice problems?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Well, one of the voice problems that Joe Buck had was when he was put to sleep for hair plugs.
Yeah.
And that messed up his vocal cord.
The other thing, there was a Thursday night game at Nissan Stadium as well where Buck barely made the broadcast. I don't know who was going to call the game.
Was it coming from baseball, maybe?
No, he flew in that day, and there was like a huge traffic issue and backed up at the airport, and they had like a police escort to get him to the stadium. And I mean, we were in our pregame show as they were trying to figure out if he was going to make kickoff or not.
I wonder what the contingency is in a close cut situation.
I would love to see Aikman just do both until he gets there.
I don't know what they would have done.
Wouldn't that
we
be
know the
something,
people to
though?
ask at Fox, but I just randomly remember that now.
I'd love to see the color guy just say, hey, just get us on air and get us to break when we say until Joe gets here.
I can do it.
Say it however you want. Yeah, you've got everything in front of you. We have a spotter. You can talk about it. You can do it as an analyst. You can do play-by-play. Just talk about what you're seeing in front of you.
And by the way,
awesome.
it is the gun charge for Frank
Jones.
Clark officially.
Clark, sorry. Yeah, I should have remembered that.
And he's suspended.
Who's Kansas City got? The second game of that's Titans next Sunday.
Yeah, and they're on the bye week this week, I believe.
So that's the Titans, and then 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, they got November 6th. They host the Titans. They then host the Jacksonville Jaguars on November 13th, and then they travel to LA to take on the Chargers.
It's helpful. I mean, you're going to have a banged-up Ryan Tannehill in that game, presumably, or conceivably Malik Willis subbing.
Could be.
Either way, that's a nice break.
Coming up, Billy Lucci joins us. He's the co-owner of TexAgs.com, and we'll chat with him about college football that's going on in College Station, lack of offense, and now some suspensions with the freshman class. That's all next on OutKick 360.
Was there a moment that you always look back to from Black Hawk Down and you said to yourself in that moment, I am not making it out? Like, I will not survive today because of this one thing.
It was kind of the entire day, the entire night. There was a portion of time, I think, in the middle of the night where things kind of calmed down and it wasn't as chaotic, and we were just kind of sitting waiting for guys in helicopters to get extricated and things like that. And it wasn't until the sun started to kind of peak back up where you're like, oh, this is going to turn back on again. But for the initial assault and 2 or 3 times that I went out into the city, it was just, I don't think any of us are going to make it out alive. And so every time we would kind of get back and be secure and all right, get more ammo, and we're going back out to try and find this other crash site. And I didn't think that it was happening for any of us. I kind of came to peace. I was just telling my son about this actually the other day, but I kind of came to peace with, okay, if I get hit in the chest, like I've got a plate carrier, hopefully that stops it. If I get hit in the arms or the legs, chances are I'll live. And if I get hit anywhere else, it's probably going to be pretty quick and traumatic and over. So I hope that I remember thinking specifically in the middle of the afternoon, I hope that I can just like look at the blue sky and have something peaceful to look at, not this whole, what I'm looking at in front of me. I hope that's not my last moments. And that kind of gave me a little bit of peace.
This one, I picked it because the caption's just frankly funny. And it's also geotagged your mom's house. It says balls deep, as we used to say, long before it was a popular term. The meaning to us referred to how far into bad guy territory we were. These are a few picks from that day, and also a pick of us getting ready to go. We lost a mate on this day, Andy Fernandez. Although he was brand new to the unit, he had just been assigned, he left his mark, and will forever be etched into historic endeavors. R.I.P. Andy. So I know you probably, are you able to say anything about what this Instagram post is in relation to?
That was a post gunfight. I think it's been talked about in some book, someplace. So I don't read any military history stuff. So I don't know. People will send me things sometimes where like, oh, this must be from this book that so-and-so wrote about. Like, I don't know. It was kind of post gunfight. We were outnumbered and surrounded by 130, 150 dudes, and had at least beat everybody back enough that that was kind of that moment when that picture was taken. So we didn't necessarily know at the time, like, it was any gunfight is a scary moment, and you don't really necessarily know the outcome. But it was almost for me and where I was, it was almost a fun gunfight. Like, they couldn't hit me where I was, and they couldn't hit my group where we were based on the terrain. And so we were almost kind of laughing, running back and forth, shooting at these guys over here, go grab some more ammo, go shoot at these guys over here. And so it wasn't, a terrifying moment. It turned into not to be a terrifying moment. But then we started hearing radio calls, hey, we got some people hit and injured, and okay, well, now this is a serious thing. It's not a funny thing anymore. And if anything, the post kind of reflects that, where, right, initially, hey, haha, fun. This was, a good day. And then, somebody paid the ultimate price that day. And Yeah, but that's about as much as I can say.
OutKick 360 rolls on across the OutKick network. Billy Lucci will be joining us momentarily from TexAgs.com as we discuss the issues in College Station. There have been plenty. Now the cure is a quarterback, right? I mean, that's number one. But also the idea of Jimbo adapting his offense to fit more of a style that's going to produce yards and points, which is a struggle right now, Chad.
Yeah, and it's and we're going to talk to Billy about this, but the basis of all of their issues begins and ends with Jimbo Fisher. And Jimbo Fisher is the only one who can make decisions to pull them out of this.
Yeah.
There's no one on that campus that can influence him. There's no one that has any power over him because of the weight of that contract and $86 million he's owed. It's going to take him making the right decisions. That's it. There's no one that can get in his ear and influence him one way or the other. He owns the donors. He owns the school. He owns the players, everything. It's all on Jimbo Fisher to make the right move, and I've been saying it all year. The right move is to go find an offensive coordinator and change the offense and recognize that it's not 2012 or 13, and you're not coaching in the ACC, where you had success with Jameis Winston at Florida State.
Well, so, to set the conversation up, there at the time, the thought was the Jimbo hire was a big reach at the time, because you look at the contract then, he was the first to get a fully guaranteed deal. At the time, it was for $75 million. Now, since then, he's got the bump up. And since then, we've seen other coaches get that same type of money, the $75 million type contract. But I just remember the reaction initially being, is this a slam dunk? Really? And, if you go back in time, we remember the Jameis season, and there are several moments of unrest with him at Florida State. But yet, you've got the quarterback whisperer, Jimbo Fisher, at Florida State, winning games with Jameis Winston and winning big. There was a Bleacher Report story that said that, there were assistants and players. They seemed to lose their drive after the 2013 national semifinal with him at the helm there. And then the article also said that Florida State had the worst academic progress report score, or whatever else that was. And, I remember people pointing to that whenever A&M gave him the big money. But he was winning, right? He was coming in to win and win big and recruit. And he's recruited. We have not seen the offense change, though.
Well, and this is not to pile on A&M here on this, but I really hope that they become a cautionary tale in all of this, in that as bad as it's going there right now with Jimbo Fisher, that this is a warning and a changing of the tide at some point to where there's some control with the schools over these contracts that are just insane. Because every time we say, man, that's a really crazy contract in favor of the coach, someone else goes, it's a hold my beer moment. And some other AD goes and signs something else that's even crazier. Mel Tucker at Michigan State. How does that look right now? The huge contract he signed after 1 year.
Well, at least it's early there. I agree with
but
you.
Again,
it's
it was
based on too little evidence.
They decided to do that.
Based on too little evidence.
Right.
But at least it's early. My thing with A&M since the conversation started is virtually everybody said, look, the recruiting is out of this world. The recruiting is out of this world, and seemed to leave everything else out of the equation. as if the recruiting by itself would win. And to me, it's a cautionary tale. Like, look, you could, with NIL and your booster money and your coach who's phenomenal in living rooms, getting kids to say yes, like that, people were acting like that's enough, or just presuming that the rest would take care of itself or was good enough, where maybe that wasn't enough in evidence, or people just kind of forgot about that stuff because they got all the stars in their eyes, the 5 stars in their eyes, and clearly just doing the recruiting isn't enough. And now the question to me is, as this season of disappointment winds down, are those 5 stars all sticking around to see this thing through, or with the ease of transfers, does all these 2 or 3 years that I've heard about this fantastic recruiting go to hell because these kids have not gotten the taste of wins outside of this one great win over Alabama, and say, I'm going to go somewhere where I can win opening day next year?
Well, people laugh when I bring this up, and we'll ask Billy Lucci about this, but I've questioned that if you're going this route, I get that it's an open market and guys are going to get paid almost anywhere they go, but if you're getting a guy purely on money, what type of player investment in football are you getting? And today we get the news that 3 freshmen in this heralded class are suspended indefinitely.
And Billy Lucci broke that story through his Twitter account and at Texags.com. Billy Lucci, owner of Texags, joins us by phone. Billy, thank you for the time, man. We always appreciate you and the help with the show.
Oh, yeah. That is a horrible picture.
You look very handsome.
It's me. So
you know
I
what?
guess I can't complain.
I don't disagree with you, though.
I think you look great. I like the backdrop with all the quality of the picture is not great, but you being in the picture with all the football memorabilia behind you looks good.
We will fire all of our production of people immediately.
To be fair, this was last minute on them as well. I sent Billy a text during the show, and I said, we're going to bring this up. I'd love to have you. It's great to have good friends in the business like Billy. You've been great to us.
Likewise.
How surprised are you that we're sitting here October 25th and we're discussing, man, what's going on in College Station? Not from a positive perspective, but from the, man, is this really going to turn like we thought it was prior to the kickoff?
Yeah, no, I'm very surprised and very disappointed to see, the way the season's gone. Look, if you name it, and it's been an issue. Offense, special teams, losing to App State, going into Starkville and just a comedy of errors there after a tight half, taking Bama down to the final play, and then all of a sudden, just that play that we've all dissected a million times when you're literally 2 yards away from maybe turning the whole thing around, and then that disastrous start in Columbia last weekend, which, it's not, I'll say this, it's not the 2 yards they didn't get against Bama. It's that you couldn't get 2 in your second game against Clemson ever under Jimbo to push it to overtime with a minute left. You couldn't get 2 against LSU last year to ice it. Special teams mistake cost you dearly against South Carolina. Well, it also did against Mississippi State. It also did, what game was there was another game where just a disastrous Appalachian State. You shank a field goal that would tie it. Maybe you avoid that loss. And it's, you're down 17-0 at South Carolina. Well, guess what? You fell down 17-0 after 3 possessions last year to Arkansas, 15-0 at halftime at Ole Miss, 10-0 at LSU last year. So it's a lot of the same issues. And guys, I'll just be honest. We can cut through all the crap, and it is. Everybody wants to say culture and these young players. Yeah, there are some young guys that are trying to figure it out and screwing up along the way. And maybe a couple everybody's talking about guys going in the portal and this and that, but I think a couple of them, Jimbo may have to put his foot down and send them to the portal, but the reality is this is a locker room like any in college football. When you go in with a preseason highly ranked team, and the wheels come off on the field. And so then from there, I tell you this, 90% of what you're seeing has to do with the fact that Texas A&M does not score enough points because their offense it's stuck in neutral, and it has been for essentially the last 2 seasons, other than like the one night you guys were at Kyle Field. So maybe we need to get y'all to a game. But other than that, even A&M's second biggest win last year, they beat Auburn 20-3. Auburn was ranked number 11 at the time. A&M didn't score a touchdown in that game. And we all thought it was because Haynes King was hurt and he was the preseason starter. And no, it's the offensive system needs a complete overhaul. And you know, I do think that'll happen. It's not going to happen until the end of this season.
But it's safe to say, though, Billy, that Jimbo Fisher is the one that's going to have to make the decision, right? There's no one, because of his contract, that can get in his ear and force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. Jimbo Fisher. Is he someone that's going to look in the mirror after this season and make the necessary change, which I think you're saying the same thing, I believe, is hiring an offensive coordinator to revamp the offense at Texas A&M and taking some of that responsibility off of his own plate? Do you feel like he's the type that's going to do that after the season?
Normally, I would say no. I think Jimbo's very set in his ways. I think there's not a lot of people that can get through to him, and I don't think that's uncommon in this profession. You guys know that. But I also think this, and somebody texted me yesterday, an old A&M player. He said, man, Jimbo came to College Station to retire. And I said, that could not be further from the truth. That has nothing to do with whether I like him or not, and I do like him. But I'll say this. I haven't seen a coach come in here and want to win worse and work harder than that guy does. You know, like it is maybe even to a detriment. You know, maybe if he could dial it back just a notch. And I think maybe by not being so caught up in the minutia of the offense to the point where you have to call every single play. You know, I don't know if he'll give up play calling. I think that's the $80 million question. But I do think, I truly believe, and I've asked around enough, that I think he understands that, man, I need some help fixing this. And it certainly needs to be fixed. So to answer your question, in the past, I would have said probably not. And there are probably a lot of people close to him that wouldn't think so. But I happen to think that is exactly what we'll see at the end of the season.
What has been the biggest issue with quarterback development, Billy? You know, if you look back at, you know, from Winston to now, there hasn't been another Winston-type performance from a quarterback with Jimbo Fisher, which is what he was known for. And we're still sitting here waiting on that. And I know you mentioned about Haynes King and the system not doing anything to help these guys, but at some point, like, they're a quarterback away from having the greatest recruiting class, right? It's a quarterback in a system that's got to catch up with 2022 college football.
Yeah, I think, you know, with this year, so much of this has to do, I think, with the injuries up front. You know, 3 of their starting 6, you know, their 6th man included there, are out for the year already. We're halfway through the season. 3 of them have had season-ending knee injuries, or one of them was an ankle, I guess. But part of it's that. And I think if you look realistically, Jimbo had Kellen Mond his first 3 years, and Kellen wasn't great, but Kellen was good. And then he had a great senior year. Like he was, I don't know. I mean, we go back and look, he might have been the 4th best quarterback in a 14-team conference, led him to a top 5 finish. You could, if he was a game manager or whatever, they had a great running game, tight end, great O-line. So that, it kind of built to that under Kellen. But then Haynes was hurt last year, and then this year's been a complete, you know, crap show. So I don't know if you could say, man, it's been, you know, one miss after the other with quarterbacks. But I do think you can say he's 5 years in and he doesn't have that guy yet. Whereas you look around so many schools and they have that guy. So forget all the reasons why, because everybody that doesn't have that guy can give you 8 million reasons, right? The question is, why don't you have that guy 5 in? I think they do have that guy. I think it's Connor Wigman. I think you better let that guy play before that guy is not here next year and you watch that guy play really good somewhere else. I think you've got him on campus. I think Haynes is banged up. If Haynes is healthy enough to play, I still think he's a warrior. The players respect and love him. But I think you play two. Like, you're at a point now in the season where you're preseason number 6 and you're 3-4. For as much as Haynes is a warrior, I think he's got 6 touchdowns to 6 picks this year, something like that. Look, it's not optimal, but everybody does it when they have to do it. And by it, I mean playing at multiple quarterbacks and seeing who's got the hot hand and who's playing better that week. But you've got to see what you've got in Connor Wigman. And he did some nice things there, thrown into the fire at the end of that game. Did he look like Cade Klubnik at Clemson? No. I say him because they were both guys that A&M offered on back-to-back days, and Klubnik has A&M. He's got A&M parents. But Cade had played earlier in the season. Those were Connor Wigman's first snaps. I think you've got to play him and see what you've got. And I do believe they have something special in him. Now it's just a matter of closing out this season with some positivity, some momentum, and maybe some offensive firepower to encourage some of these guys. Because I think recruiting the guys you have on campus it might be more important right now than recruiting, outside.
So I asked this question, Billy, as someone who went to Tennessee, and I've had to ask this existential question myself about my own program. So know where this is coming from. It felt for many years like the 5-star guys that chose Tennessee were the wrong guys, the wrong 5-star guys, that even though Alabama and Georgia and Florida would be after the same guys, the ones that picked Tennessee always seemed to be the wrong players, that maybe were a little bit overrated, or maybe football wasn't quite as important to them as it was some other guys. Have you started to ask that question at all about this recruiting class at A&M, especially given the problems that you reported today with 3 guys being suspended indefinitely within this class? And when you look at the recruiting as a whole the last 2 years, is there a consistent theme with things that have not worked out with Jimbo Fisher and A&M recruiting?
No, I think that it's a great question. And I get the Tennessee thing because A&M's been there before as well. I mean, obviously. But I think, if you look on defense, those guys are playing, and they're playing hard. I'm talking about the freshmen. And they're playing their asses off, and they're getting better. Across the defensive line, in the secondary, those 2 positions in particular. And then, Evan Stewart's doing nice things, although, there's always kind of that cloud hanging over a receiver that's not getting the ball enough that's as good as him. I think what the type guy you're talking about, yes, out of a 30-person class, there's by a handful, I mean less than a 5-man handful. There's 3 or 4 guys there that I think Jimbo's got to really ask that question about, because that does not need to turn into 8. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That does not need to turn into half the class. But I honestly think it's a very small handful, as in 3 or 4. And there are a couple guys that, if you look at these 2 groups of suspensions, there are a couple guys that have been involved in both incidents. And I think you have to look at that. But I don't think you overlook how well a lot of these dudes are playing as true freshmen. Donovan Green at tight end, Evan Stewart at wide receiver, and then on the defensive side of the ball, there's 3 of them that have been injured, 3 or 4 of them, and outside of them, I think there's about 8 of them that are playing regularly and actually playing really good. And the Aggie defense isn't great, but it's a pretty good defense so far this season under DJ Dirk, and they don't stop the run very well. But just in terms of points allowed and how that some of the other numbers they're putting out there, it's a pretty good defense, and there's a lot of young guys on it. So and you can see them getting better. So I don't think as a class, but I do think you are running the risk if you don't make sure your house is in order and handle problems like the ones that popped up. I do think it might be time for Jimbo to kind of send a little message and say, hey guys, it's not good enough. This is not going to fly around here, because I do think, you don't want that to, that number of guys that, are kind of maybe where football doesn't matter as much, or maybe they've read their own press clippings, or maybe they just think, hey, I'll just go do an NIL somewhere else if I have to. You don't want that culture to spread.
Billy Lucci, Texags.com, our guest. Final thing for you, Billy. We were joking about this earlier in the show. News came out that Mike Evans was asked for his phone number to give it to a golf pro. And I was joking after the show yesterday. I said, I wonder if one of those officials went to A&M. Turns out it was Jeff Lamberth, side judge. And we were joking, you probably had dinner with Jeff last night.
I know the golf coach.
Or the golf pro.
Yeah. Do you know Lamberth? And I'm just curious here. I know you know Mike Evans. What'd you make of the story when you saw it?
I thought it was just I thought it was an autograph, and I was like, God, Lee, everybody's going to try to get this referee fired over this, and it clearly was like a little piece of paper, which means you're giving it to like your 5-year-old, son or grandkid. Yeah. And then to find out what it really was, I'll tell you what, just for fun, I read the mentions today on that news story broke, and I got so much dumber reading the mentions. And people just won't let it go. They won't be happy until like the world comes down on this official. And it's so sad. But no, I actually don't know him. I was interested to find out he was an Aggie. That's cool. The most famous Aggie official, of course, is Red Cashin. First down, but yeah, that's cool.
Do you know the golf pro?
I did not know.
And you didn't know the golf pro either that he was recommending?
Did his name come out? Because
we assumed it was the same. We thought it was the same golf course where we had dinner.
Yeah, I assumed you would know right away. I'm like,
it was probably Bill. It was probably my man Bill Slade, he's gonna owe me lunch for saying his name.
There we go.
That's him.
No, I'll tell you, Mike. Mike's a super good friend. One of my favorite Aggies ever. One of my favorite people. But I'll tell you the one of the best weddings I've been to, because at the end they catered out Whataburger to everyone. They brought literally on trays with the people carrying around with the white napkins over their sleeves, carrying around trays of Whataburger, like breakfast on a bun and honey butter chicken biscuits at the end of the wedding. So it was a perfect way to close it out.
Most elaborate wedding you've ever attended, Billy, it's which one?
Ooh. I don't know about elaborate. One of my favorite setups was Jen Brown. And Jen Brown and her husband Wes in outside of Atlanta in like West Georgia. I forget where it was, but it was really cool. Maybe Barnsley. Does that sound familiar?
Sure.
But anyway,
Barnsley's beautiful. Whatever time of year you were there, I'm sure it was great.
See.
He had no idea.
That was probably that was one I really liked. That one I remember that stands out. And then there's always the destination ones that never fail to come through.
Finally, are you going to the World Series?
Yeah, but I've got a lot of people coming in Friday for Ole Miss, some good friends, and then Saturday is the game. So that's game 1 and 2. So I don't know. I might have to book like a midweeker to Philly. I think I have a feeling this will be a good series, and I do think Philly hot, and I haven't forgotten what the Nationals did to the Astros a couple years ago. And to be honest, the Mariners, that series could have been a lot different. I actually think they'll give them a much tougher run than the Yankees did, and I think this one will come back for a Game 6 to Houston, and that's kind of the one I'm planning on going to before that beautiful 11 a.m. kickoff against Florida the next day.
Hey, if you're looking to unload anything for Saturday night, I'm in town for Titans on Sunday, so I'll help you out with a single on Saturday night if you need.
You talking about the Astros or the Aggies?
Yeah, Astros.
Hey, I will let you know. Yeah. They do have a funny way of finding. They do have a funny way.
Hold on. Let me scribble my number down like Mike Evans did.
Billy's thinking if it's the Aggies, I've got you. You can go down the sideline if you'd like, but maybe not for the World Series.
Yeah, I had that one. If you get bored, let me know.
Billy, thank you, man.
Thanks.
I really appreciate the last minute jumping on by phone and giving us some background here because you're dumber for reading the mentions on that tweet. We're smarter for having you on the show.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you guys. Y'all balanced out the mentions for me.
Good enough.
You're the man, Billy. Thank
there
you.
He is. There's Billy Lucci.
All right, thank y'all.
Yeah, man.
Remember we had Billy on in
TexAgs.com.
an Uber headed to Wrigley Field
Yeah,
one
man.
time.
I love.
So if he goes to Philly next week
I love
for a
his
World
stories.
Series game, he'll have to join us from his
His
ride
connections are
to the game.
incredible. They just all around.
He knows everyone.
Yes. Coming up, we let you know about the new stadium that's going to be built in the NFL right here in Music City, and some renderings that have been released through the team. Titans have given us a glimpse, Paul.
Pretty good. Looks pretty good.
Looks pretty
Though
good.
one
we'll dive
complaint
in.
I heard sticks in my head. I'll share that one.
That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. You know why I wear a king's crown sometimes? I'm going to tell you why I wear a king's crown sometimes. Because I tell you things that are going to happen before they do. That makes me the king. If I were in House of the Dragons, I would be the king. I would not be dead. I would be alive. I would be the king, and everybody would have to genuflect to me, and I would own all the dragons. And that blonde-haired lady, Viserys, would not be planning war crimes because she's going to kill everybody, I think, including me. So when it comes back next year in the House of the Dragons, I'm going to do what I do when I'm scared. No, I don't slap women like the wide receiver. I'm going to crawl into my bed, pull the covers over my head, and put the pillow over my cover and hope that whatever her name is doesn't hurt me. But I am the king because I tell you things that are happening before they happen. What did you tell us, Dan? Let me refresh. I told you that Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are not making the playoffs. I was mocked openly. When you look like this, you get mocked openly for a variety of things, and you don't even get to see my big fat belly that my wife told me, hey, look, we got to get that thing, get rid of that thing. I can't blame this on the media. I can't blame this on Blogger Boys. I can't blame this on all the crap that I always blame things on. This was me thinking I saw something, and honest to God, that was a horrific performance, and he still had a chance to lead him back in the end, then Pittman fumbles. But still, no, shut up, Dan. It's over.
Yeah, he was
done.
He was bad.
Horrible.
And that throw.
Why are we throwing 44 times, we being the Colts, as I spit all over the place, and giving Jonathan Taylor the ball 10 times?
It makes no sense.
Tell me.
It makes no sense. It is weird how Derrick Henry and the Titans just destroy that head-to-head matchup.
It's unbelievable.
Two guys who were thought to be the top running backs in the NFL, when they go head-to-head, it is no contest. Derrick Henry and the Titans dominate versus Jonathan Taylor. Taylor does nothing against the Titans, which is shocking. But that one, the pick six that we're discussing, for an NFL quarterback, not just Matt Ryan, who's I think 39 years old and done this for a long time, I don't know how you even, when you start to release the football in that direction with two guys, one who's sitting right on top of the route, you don't just do one of those where you just, fly it into the fifth row. At that point, when you see it, you're going to the outside. Just throw it away.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's thinking, what he's doing on that play.
9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
What's up, guys? It's Tommy. Don't miss a single episode of Tommy Lahren is Fearless by checking out OutKick.com. But if you did miss an episode, here's what you missed. The average cost of a wedding in 2022 is around $27,000. Double that and add thousands more, and you'll have around the total my dumbass decided to spend on my own upcoming wedding. Now look, I was and am one of those brides who wanted to keep it small. I didn't want a big wedding. I didn't want to spend the equivalent of a hefty house down payment on one night in a barn in Nashville, but then bam, it happened. I'm honestly still flabbergasted by it because while our wedding is going to be very nice, our food is going to be very good, and our alcohol is going to be overflowing, it's not like we're inviting 400 people, and it's not like Madonna is performing, for goodness sakes. So how the hell did it get so expensive? Like anything else these days, welcome to Brandon's America. For today's edition of Final Thoughts, I'm going to share my top 5 wedding tips for those who are about to be, or even think about getting married. Here we go. Number 5, get a wedding planner. It seems like a ridiculous expense to pay someone an arm and a leg to coordinate other people, places, and things you've also spent an arm and a leg on. But trust me on this, even if you're the most organized, creative, and put together person or couple, you need a wedding planner. After all you've done and all you've spent, the last thing you want to do and worry about is corralling and hurting vendors on your big day. Something is always going to go wrong, and it's worth it to pay someone to help you put out fires and clean up messes. Number 4. If you can't afford the wedding, don't spend money on the wedding.
An estimated $2.1 billion stadium is coming to Music City. The finances have been approved. The renderings released through the Tennessee Titans today. And, Paul, your thoughts on the stadium? I think it looks great.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty terrific. The outside, unlike anything we've seen, so you want something that's unique. And, I'd call this like modern Nashville.
Yep.
The only criticism I've heard from a fan on Twitter, and we know how unlikely it is, you hear very little criticism. Somebody said it looks like a library or a Starbucks. Once they put that in my head, I kind of have it in my head. But I think it looks outstanding. If we flip to the next one, you see the inside,
the canopy up top.
Looks terrific, the translucent top.
Yep.
And, a shorter upper deck. We've talked about the upper deck being the hardest ticket to sell. Fewer upper deck, more lower bowl, it looks like.
Roughly 60,000.
Can still fit a soccer field, I'm told. That's, they're going to have to bring in dirt and grass to hold the soccer event there, but you want to leave the option open over the 30-year initial lease of this building, which hopefully lasts longer than that. The windows in the back, Lucas Oil Stadium kind of effect. And then another shot of outside, which also, from the corner shows this kind of stuff.
Deck.
Some people are saying, well, what do you want that for? It's a great feature on the outside of the stadium. And this is going to be something that can be used on non-game days by the team, by the city. You mentioned, or you have a restaurant there.
I think they'll have restaurants up there,
which will be terrific.
It will overlook the river to
and
the
park,
city.
Yeah, the park down to the river.
It's
I think it looks terrific.
Yeah, I do too. And the video they put out was really cool. This is well done, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, it looks terrific. It doesn't scream football to me. It looks like a brand new work of architecture that's going to be cool downtown. I don't look at any of that and think NFL games are going to be played here. And I look at the stadium.
Inside one.
Well, the inside of the stadium looks like everything else to me. And that's not a knock. I mean, that's just every new. I'm sure in 1967, when they built the multi-purpose stadiums, they all look the same too. I'm just saying there's no distinctive characteristic about the interior of the stadium.
And that looks like there'll probably be 4 video boards, like the 4-corner approach that Lucas Oil Stadium has, and a ribbon board that goes all the way around, not the video board that goes all the way around.
At the risk of, and I don't really care, but every time you open your mouth about this is going to be good for the city, you're going to have people, it's not your tax dollar. You live in Davidson County. Whatever. It's good for the city. I mean, having that venue in Nashville, regardless of what I think about the football part of it, is good for the city. It's going to clean up that whole area. It's going to develop an entire part of the downtown footprint on the other side of the river. It's good for the city.
And hopefully there is some room for some evolution of the indoor space that makes it feel distinct, Chad. I'm with you on that.
I'm sure they're doing that.
Yeah. That's important.
They didn't release too much. They gave just enough.
Yeah, enough to get everybody
a little flavor
hungry
to it. We're back at it tomorrow for OutKick 360. We will get you ready on all of the football as we turn our attention to the weekend of big matchups.
Don't block the box. Do lock your locks. See ya.